Welcome, everyone. So today's a very exciting day for us. We hope it's an exciting day for you too. We've been working on this for quite a while now, and you've probably heard about me talk about it over the few years. And so we've heard from industry, we've heard from you wanting faster access to NABERS data and the ability to integrate our algorithms into your workflows. So now it's finally possible with the launch of our API. So before we dive in, two things. First, I'd like to start a poll. So you'll see it coming up now through the Slido app. And I would like for you to let me know what industry and sector are you in, because that'll help me understand who we've got tuned in. It'll help me know if I should be explaining things in a certain way. And I'll come back to that in just a moment. Second, I'd like to pass you over to our director, Magli Wardle, to open up the meeting with an acknowledgement of country and share some words. Over to you, Magli.
Thank you so much, Ron. Yes, great to be here today. I'd like to start off with an acknowledgement of country. So I'd like to acknowledge that we meet today on many Aboriginal lands. I think that's particularly true today because I think we have people dialing in from all over the country and potentially further beyond. And I'd like to pay my respect to the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet and acknowledge any Aboriginal people that are joining us today. So if we just move to the next slide. As Ron mentioned, my name is Magli Wardle. I'm the Acting Director of NABERS, and I'm really pleased to join you here today for the launch of our API. It's great to see so many people online, and as Ron already mentioned, this has been something we've been talking about for literally years, so it's really great to see it finally out there. This API is all part of our strategic plan goal around evolution. We really want to make sure that our products evolve with market needs and make sure that we continue to stay relevant and drive impact. So NABERS is launching this API to make data access faster, easier, and more reliable for the entire market. This is a major step in modernizing how industry works with NABERS and unlocking new opportunities for innovation. We're really grateful to the pilot participants and the wider community whose feedback has helped to shape this tool. And today is showing about what's possible now. So I'm going to pass back to Ron now and sit back and enjoy the launch today.
Thank you. And so I'll go through some housekeeping in case you're having difficulty finding where the poll is. So it's through the Slido app in Teams. You'll see a selection up near the bar. You'll be able to click Slido, or in the chat, there might also be a notification. And then I'll give everyone else just a bit more time to send through their votes. So with the housekeeping, we have muted you to avoid any background noise. We've also turned off your cameras so we have a better connection. And we will have the Q&A function open. So similarly, you'll see it up in the tab in Teams to click between Q&A and Slido. So please ask your questions and we'll answer them during the Q&A session. Where possible, we'll have someone from our team actually answer them as they come in. And so that's a thanks to you, Carl, for managing that. So the agenda and coming with the poll results. So we're getting a lot through. It looks to be quite a lot from analytics and technology providers and a lot from sustainability and compliance experts. Ooh, also good to see a few from government bodies and also building and property management. So that's great. I'll know where to speak with some context. You'll hear a lot more. It's definitely going to be relevant to all of you. And yeah, keep voting through because that information will be helpful. So with the API on our agenda, a lot of people, as you would know, already understand the NABERS star rating and how it's used, so on the 6-star scale. And a lot of the details on the back end, so like the inputs, outputs that create the star rating, there's a lot involved. So the API is actually going to make everyone's life easier that works in that ecosystem, whether you are, a building owner, analytics provider, or even a complete newbie to NABERS. And so I'm sure you've got a lot of questions in your head already, either before this session or coming up now. That's good. You will get answers to those in the upcoming slides. But again, feel free to shoot them through as soon as they come through in the Q&A. And if we don't get to it for whatever reason, you can always reach out to us afterwards. There's only so much we can cover in the session. So in this webinar, you will hear about what actually is the API. So, how did we get here? What can it do? How can you use it? And I find that the best way to see how it works is to actually see how someone else uses it. So we'll have Carl from Neighbors do a bit of a walkthrough, a bit of a demo on how simple it is to use. And we'll also hear from Amelia from Bueno, who did some piloting for us, and she has kindly agreed to tell us about and talk about what it means to them. I'll then run you through some of the details on how you sign up, how much it costs. We'll run through the questions that you've all sent, and then we will wrap it up. So, what is the API? Before I hand it over in a moment to our technology lead, Ash, who's been working on this since day one, I actually, and I didn't tell anyone I do this, I actually want to take a moment to thank a few people within Neighbors that made this possible because, things like this, they don't just appear out of thin air. It's a result of many hands over a couple of years that have brought us to this point. So I do want to give a special thanks to Ash and his product development team with James and Sumit because really they are the ones that are the brains behind the project. I also want to thank Magali, Matilda, and Carmen, who have worked on and led this project at some point and at different points in the past. And you're waiting for it. I definitely can't forget a big and special thanks to Carl because the launch simply wouldn't have been able to happen without him, from making sure that everything worked to solving many different challenges that came our way and really just being such a reliable teammate. So thank you, Carl, and thank you, everyone. So now, as part of the building the tool, we also engaged a lot of industry stakeholders, who I also have a lot to thank for. Uh, as you can see, the numbers, there's over 140 organizations, there's over 300 people from all kinds of different stakeholder groups. As you can see, from building owners to investors to consultants to financial institutions to government to researchers, we were able to learn a lot of things from running some pilots and importantly, learn a whole bunch of different use cases from speaking from such a diverse audience. So a lot of the feedback we received, we were actually able to incorporate. And if you were one of those that did pilot, I hope you notice that and see the difference when you get a chance to use the API in its final form. And we also put a lot of the stuff we did here on the bike rack for some potential future enhancements. So that really helped us answer the question on, who can use the API? And the answer to that is pretty much anyone. So whether you're someone who works or who owns or manages buildings, whether you work in sustainability, whether you build or use digital tools, whether you use data research or work in data research or policy. And this isn't an exhaustive list. And I can see still a lot of people voting on the poll to show me what sector you're in, but it really shows how broad the value it is. And it isn't just something that, you have to have used Neighbors for a long time to get value from. So here are some of the top things we did here through the process and on why it's useful and why they're excited, because it provides them with that fast and secure way to access data. They can count on the calculations being accurate as it comes straight from the Neighbors engine, especially with any changes that might happen. And you're all familiar with the energy changes we made recently on the 1st of July. It saves time with data collection and running analyses on Neighbors metrics. It's scalable, whether you've got one building, you're dealing with one building, 10 building, 100 buildings, and it's plug and play. It's really easy to integrate into existing tools and processes that people had. So what I'll do now is I'll close the first poll. I'm going to open a second poll so you all have time to go through that too. And I'll come back to this after Ash's presentation. And you've heard enough from me now, so I will pass it over to you, Ash. And sorry,
Thanks, Ron.
the question to the poll is, how do you currently access Neighbors data? Yeah, sorry, go for it, Ash.
Thanks, Ron. Hi, everyone. I'm Ash. I am the tech lead at Neighbors. Personally, I'm really, really excited to be here today. I would next share something that I've been working on for a very long time. So let me walk you through why we built the API, how we approached it, and where we landed. So in a nutshell, our legacy applications at Neighbors were very cumbersome and everything was manual. And that meant that we had provided very little automation to our customers. So from a data model perspective, the data model for our legacy application wasn't scalable, which meant that we couldn't really grow as saw coming to the Neighbors program. That also meant that access to data was a manual process, so somebody from the Neighbors team had to fulfill a data request. We also suffered a lot of data integrity issues, which meant that we spent a lot of time cleaning up the data. And then we had separate applications for the different rating tools, which meant that we spent a lot of time maintaining those tools. So when it came to the calculators, you only could really use the calculators through the website, and you could only use it in a single-use scenario, which meant there was a lot of manual work involved. We also provided no external integrations, and we kept hearing, isn't there a better way to integrate with the calculator? And the answer I would always say is, unfortunately not yet, but it is coming. And for the registers, again, it was manual. So you're using the website. So you're either using a CSV download to download the rating register, or you're using the map feature to find a specific rating. And then if you had a specific data request for large amounts of data, then somebody from the NABERS team had to be involved. So how did we get to an API solution? So back in 2019, we started a digital transformation project to move on to the cloud. So we wanted all our applications to be under one roof. So we chose Salesforce as the platform of choice, and that really gave us some really key benefits for our growth. First of all, we could scale dynamically, which meant we didn't have to worry about hardware, network, or servers. And we could leverage pre-built Salesforce functionality like the CRM, the knowledge base, and focus really our product development efforts on building the rating tools that we wanted to be in. And then we had access to reporting tools, which meant we could make data-driven decisions, which helped our growth within NABERS. But most importantly for today, what Salesforce offered us was a native API framework that could help us build APIs for our clients. So what was this API framework? First of all, it meant that we could build standard APIs that could be used throughout the world and whoever wants to access to our APIs. It also meant platform independence. So we could program the APIs in any language that we wanted to use, and that would be irrelevant to how people call the APIs and what other program language our customers use. Also, we could also separate our internal IT architecture and scale and add components without affecting our APIs. And then it provided us as well error handling, so we could provide useful messages to our customers when they're calling the APIs in case they run into issues or there anything with the structure of the APIs calls. So what does that look for us today as an API? So the APIs now are live. So they are called a REST API. So those who are not tech savvy, REST is a standard protocol for business applications to talk to each other. You'll find that our APIs are consistent. So whether it's the registers or the calculators, whether the forward or reverse calculator, we built a consistent theme and usage. So you won't have any problem following the different calculators or the different APIs that you're using. We're also secure. So we basically built it with our security based on the NSW government standards. And then we also documented all the different variations of the APIs. So you should be able to follow that documentation quite easily. And that is available through a website. And then with analytics, we're going to be able to optimize the performance of the APIs. So we'll be tracking the usage and be able to make adjustments in case we see areas where we need to make certain adjustments. The APIs are really easy to use once you get access, and it shouldn't be a big deal even for those people are not tech savvy. And it is scalable. So by scalable, I mean we could add APIs to the existing framework or add additions to the existing APIs, like adding new fields or new features as we see fit. So we've implemented the API as a product. So it's complete with a pricing model. We have a business operation process in place. We have both billing and support. That means that you can start using the API and have access to NABERS data right away. We are here today based on the feedback that we received, and we only see this as the first step in the API journey, but we would love to hear from you. So we would love to talk. So always give us a shout out if you want to talk about the APIs. And with that, I'll hand it back to Ron to see how the API works.
Thanks, Ash. And look, I was tossing up whether or not I would do it, but you'd probably get sick of me talking for the whole webinar. And it was definitely better to come from Ash, especially with him being involved right from the beginning and really the knowledge he has on the tech side. So thanks, Ash. I appreciate you taking the time for that. So I'll jump to the poll results. Starting off, so the question was, how do you currently access NABERS data? And it's good to see. So I had some assumptions on where people probably use it, but it's good to see that a lot of people are actually using the online calculators, from a calculation point of view, but even the rating register for the data. So I think you will find that these APIs will make a lot of that easier, but I won't spoil that part now. I will come to that in just a few slides. More importantly, now to talk about how it works. So, and that's why I did the poll, because it leads into this part. So our product suite is broken down into two different APIs, one that gives you access to our algorithms and the other one that gives you access to our database. So the rating calculator is the one that allows you to use the NABERS algorithm to provide you with calculated star results, star rating, and other outputs. It is important to note that these outputs won't replace and don't replace a certified rating. That's because nothing will replace the rigor and credibility that comes with third-party assessment through the NABERS assessors. But these are definitely insights that will help with many, many different things like performance tracking, building insights, and I'm sure that's also why you are using the online calculator in that way. The rating register is the one that allows you to pull the ratings from our database. So you can see a list of buildings that are certified, their star rating, carbon emissions, and their certification period, for example. So really to get the data from our database. A quick one, because there is likely to be a range of people, and we found in our discussions, there's definitely a range of people from knowledge and experience on APIs, what they do, let's say from 0 to 100 in terms of expertise. So what is an API and what does it stand for? So API stands for Application Programming Interface. It is basically a secure way for two systems to talk to each other. So we'll use an example. We've got a user system, which is you, that asks for something, for example, ratings from the database. And then we've got the other system, which would be us, NABERS, and we send back exactly what you asked for, which are ratings from the database. And I always like to do a bit of an example because, people think API, think it might be too tech, but there are many examples of APIs being used in everyday use. So if you've opened a weather app, you've already used an API without knowing it, because the app is asking the Bureau of Meteorology for the latest data, and then the Bureau of Meteorology sends the latest data to the app instantly. There are also many other examples that you can see being used in everyday use, so emergency warnings, tidal information, map information. Really, that APIs are used in a lot of things very seamlessly, and from a user experience, you probably don't know that an API is being used. And that one API can be used in many different ways by many different people. So coming back to that example of the Bureau of Meteorology, it isn't just being used for weather apps. It can be used for things like business intelligence, training weather prediction models, for forecasting, smart irrigation, access to historical data for research projects. It's an example of one API that can be used in many different use cases. Very similarly in what we see with the NABERS API, it's got very many different use cases for very different people. So the way you would actually be using it right now, and that's why the poll came into play, is through our online tools. So you've got the Estimate Your Rating page, where you can input some of the data and it provides you with an estimated star rating. So the API allows you to do that in an programmatically automated way to integrate into your platforms. And then you have the rating register. And here you could see the map, you could download the CSV of all current certified ratings, but that's a very manual process, right? You either got to scrape the data every day, you're going to the website to do it manually. The API will allow you to do that with some automation. So I did mention at the beginning, the best way to explain how to use the API is by seeing how it's actually used. We'll start with Carl, who will walk you through two examples. So one through a console, and I'll set a bit of context just so it makes a bit more sense. You can think of this as a test bench where anyone from pros to complete beginners, and I can claim that because I've used it myself and I'm definitely no pro, where they can use our sample code to get the API working and you get a feel for how the API behaves. He'll also walk you through an example of a spreadsheet, which is really seeing it in a nice, simple solution, which is something everyone should be familiar with, and actually probably something a lot of you could build on your own. And this is to show and prove that you actually don't need a full-blown solution, invest a lot of time and resources, which most people might expect to be able to get the benefit of the API. And then you'll hear from Amelia from Bueno, who will tell us about their solution. And this is where you'll be able to see how powerful the API can be when it's plugged into a sophisticated design. So what I'll do is I'm going to start up a third poll. and then I'll come back to this towards the end. The question is, how do you intend to use the NABERS API? So you might be inspired by some of these demos, and I'll come back to it very soon. And I just want to give you 2 disclaimers before I hand you over to Carl. This is going to be a quick demo. It may sound a little technical, but I know for sure it'll help give you an idea on what it's like to use the API. We're definitely happy to talk through these in more detail if you want to reach out to us afterwards. It's the difference between a 5-minute demo and a 1-hour demo. And if we get a lot, we might actually run a separate webinar so we can deep dive, and people can ask questions as they go, and maybe have some more times past. People have been able to build some solutions, maybe get demos from how other people have created it. The second disclaimer is that there's an infinite amount of ways that you can utilize the API with many, many different use cases. You'll probably have use cases we haven't heard of, and I think that's great because we want to hear them. We learned a lot through the development process, and we want to see what your solution's like. So these, you could think of these as a helping point or a starting pointer to get an idea, especially if you are a beginner to APIs and how you could potentially use it. All right. I will now pass you over to Carl. Go for it, Carl.
Great. Thanks, Ron, and hello, everyone. In this demonstration, I'll be making some live calls to both of our APIs and the rating calculator and the rating register. I'll start by using a developer console to do this, as Ron mentioned. This type of console is typically used by API developers and clients to check the basic communications with their APIs. So there's several of these available online, and many are free, and they're relatively easy to use. So this will allow us to see the structure of the API call and all the inputs and outputs. So let's start with a call for an energy star rating calculation for an office building. So up the top here, we've got the URL, which is the endpoint of the API where we're sending the request to. This type of call is a post call, which means we're sending information and expecting something back. And to put the call together, we have a header section where we specify a bit of metadata about this request. Here we would like the we'd like the response sent to us in this JSON format. I'll talk about that a bit later. And we've also got our API subscription key, which is required for validation. In the body of the call, we've got our inputs. So we've got our control inputs, which give the building details, and then we've got rating and energy inputs, which we're expecting the calculations to be done on. So all of the information for putting a call together is in the technical documentation that we've made available online. So there's a link from that on the API webpage. So I'm going to go ahead and make that call. The key's been verified and the calculations done, and our outputs have been returned. So this is the JSON format, which I mentioned before. It's easy to integrate into other applications and dashboards, and it's also possible for humans to read it. So we can see in this response here, we've got our star rating, and we've got detailed calculation metrics such as our emissions. And that was a simple call which demonstrated the structure of the request, the inputs and the outputs. And that was one calculation. However, the API can handle multiple calculations in a call, and we'll see that demonstrated in the next example. I'm going to switch to a spreadsheet here. And in this case, the code for calling the API has been embedded into a macro, which we're going to activate with the button. And by the way, this spreadsheet is tailored specifically for this demo, so it's not something we're releasing. So we've arranged our columns here to capture the inputs, just like we had in the console. And I'll start the macro, and in the background, it's calling the API. The calculation's been performed, and we've mapped the results to populate the cells on the right side of the screen. So we've got one calculation per row here, and the macro reads each row puts together the call, and then we get the results and it populates the spreadsheet. So we've got one calculation per line here, and you can send up to 100 calculations per call. So now that calculations are in a spreadsheet format, you can perform many powerful functions like tracking and modeling. So maybe you have a portfolio of buildings and you want to run regular calculations to see where each building is at with its star raters, with its NABERS star rating, or maybe you've got a building that you want to run some modeling and test some various scenarios by varying the inputs. So that's an example of how the API enables integration and scalability and automation. So now we'll look at a call to our rating register API, and I'm going to switch back to our console here, and we'll go to a call to the rating register. So this time it's a GET request because simply we're getting information from the API. This call is put together in a similar fashion. We have requested that we'd like the response in a JSON format. We've got our API key. Because we're not sending any information to be actioned, there's nothing in the body of the call, but we do have some parameters here which are specifying the type of response we would like from the API. So we're asking for details from office buildings that have an energy rating that are current, and we've specified the number of records we'd like returned. All these parameters get embedded into the URL, so when the call is made, the response arrives in that JSON format, so we can read it, but it can be easily integrated into applications. So there's the output there for one record from the rating register. We asked for 200 of them, so there's the records for 200 buildings there. We've got building address, rating scope, consumption data, star rating. So that's the basic call to our rating register. Now let's look at the same call, but in some business intelligence software, where we'll be able to do a little bit more with that data. So I mentioned earlier in the GET request that the parameters of the call were embedded into the URL. So calling the API from this application, which is Power BI, we've got our URL specified there with the parameters. We'll make the call and we receive the response in a table format. So here it can be exported into other applications such as a database or spreadsheet, but there's many powerful analytic functions that can be customized right here in Power BI. So that was a look at several fairly simple methods of communicating with the NABERS API and what goes on in the back end. So hopefully this demonstration has showed you the power of the API and how calls can be automated, scaled, and integrated into a variety of front-end applications. And with that, I'll hand back to you, Ron.
Thank you very much, Carl. So we'll now hear the demo from Amelia. And so Amelia, when you're ready, go for it. Show us how it's done.
Thanks, Ron. I'll just share my screen. 1 second. Awesome. Okay. Hi guys, my name's Amelia from Bueno. I've been working here for almost 3 years, working as a customer success manager, and I'm originally from the UK. And I'm here to talk a bit about Bueno and NABERS. So who is Bueno? We are a building analytics platform focused on reducing energy usage and costs for our customers. So we work across major portfolios from commercial offices to shopping centres, hotels, hospitals, universities. And as you can see from the map on there, we have customers in Australia, but also in the States, the UK, Europe, and we're actually seeing huge interest in the NABERS UK tool. So the history of Bueno and NABERS dates back to our founder, Leon Wuffel, who was heavily involved in the development of NABERS. And he brought that experience into Bueno to help buildings achieve and maintain higher NABERS ratings. And we've been working on helping customers achieve these ratings since then, so the last 13 years. So, our clients always asking, how do I raise my NABERS rating? Or based on my performance today, how's my NABERS tracking? And because of this, we developed our own NABERS tracking tool. So this allows our customers to track their NABERS ratings all year round. So if I just talk to the report a bit, if you see in the left-hand black box, this is our estimated NABERS rating. So this is a live decimal rating that's formulated by our calculator. This is the same as what the API spits out, an estimate based off parameters. So you can see the parameters in that table at the bottom there, with occupied hours, rated area, etc. And also in our standard NABERS reporting is the last certified rating, so the last official certificate the asset received. So the benefits of us having this reporting, we're able to catch these rating slips immediately. We don't need to wait 12 months to find out that our customers have dropped a star or half a star. And it's kind of a continuous pulse check on assets in between the official assessments. So, what we do at Bueno through our analytics, we suggest energy saving opportunities to our customers, and we're able to track the immediate impact of these operational changes. So, for example, we optimized plant room equipment or we changed scheduling. Did our rating improve? Did the NABERS rating go up? So currently, I just put a screenshot in there. We have been using massive spreadsheets, like how the NABERS rating calculator used to be in spreadsheets. And as you can imagine, it's slow working with these big spreadsheets with heaps of formulas. So it moves me nicely onto the API, the excitement of eradicating spreadsheets. So why the NABERS API? Why are we so excited about it? Bueno. So it means that at Bueno, we can be more flexible to changes as there's a single source of truth. So for example, when NABERS changed the benchmarking factors recently in July, we wouldn't have to amend our engine. We can be more adapted to these changes. It also helps us streamline our NABERS tracking. So as I mentioned before, at Bueno, we're across a bunch of different assets, and the calculator supports different types of buildings, so offices and shopping centers, and different types of assessments like whole and base building. So we're looking forward to having this all in one source. And there's also the rating registry, which is another feature of another segment of the API that we're very excited about, because it gives us the ability to pull the last official rating certificate for validation of our tracking. I showed in our example report, it's beneficial to report on what the site's last certified rating is versus how it's tracking. So yeah, it just gives us the ability to pull all the historical ratings without asking clients to dig through PDFs, which they may not have access to the older certificates. So we can have that historical record accessible. And we're looking forward to the future. As I mentioned, we operate in the UK and we also operate in New Zealand, and a variety of different assets like hospitals and hotels, and these are areas that the NABERS do. So as NABERS and the API expands to these regions and sectors, we don't have to rebuild our engine. We have the ability to pull from the API for the new sector when it gets released. So it's just really awesome that we're able to support our customers in these regions and sectors in the future. So yeah, that's all from me. Very short and sweet. We're really excited to be working with the NABERS team. We've really enjoyed sinking our teeth into the API testing process during the pilot and contributing our feedback. It was a really responsive process with the NABERS team, and we're really looking forward to trying to implement the API into our engine moving forward.
Thank you so much for that, Amelia. I really appreciate it, because I can make up a whole bunch of things, but it really helps seeing and hearing from an actual solution and how you can go about it. And I really want to dive into the poll results, because I think this links into building performing analysis. But I had a quick peek at the Q&A and I saw that there is a lot coming through. So I'm gonna skip the poll part to make sure we have enough time to go through all these questions, because I'm also conscious of time and we still need to talk about the pricing and access to it. So again, thank you very much, Amelia, and for everyone else, because I know you're having questions about it. I will get to it now. So now that you've got a better idea of how it works, let's talk about how you can access the API. So very simply, in terms of the process, you can head to our website, which is live now, and you can download the terms and conditions. I think I saw a question about something within the terms and conditions, so it sounds like you're already taking a look at that. That's great. And the process is very, very simple. So it's as easy as, after you've reviewed it and you've agreed to it, you sign those terms and conditions, you send it to our mailbox. We'll then start the process and send you an invoice. Then after you've paid the invoice, send us that confirmation, and then we can send you the API key with an onboarding pack, and you're good to go. And the onboarding pack will have, I'll come to the logo soon, which you're going to really like, but also some of the technical documentation, which I know links to one of the questions that came through in the Q&A. So a quick note on timing, just to set expectations. You could expect about a 2-week turnaround time, because we do anticipate quite a few requests to come in the first few weeks. Also a heads up that we'll have our 2-week shutdown period at the end of the month, but we will definitely move as fast as we can. We'll help out as much as we can. And whether or not you have questions on the process or the API itself, shoot it through. That's what we're here for. We're here to help. So how much does it cost? So with the pricing, here's how it's broken down. We've got those two separate APIs. We've got the rating register and the rating calculator. So you can choose one or both. If you've seen the terms and conditions, you can see there's a tick box to choose which one you want to pick. Hold on to that thought for a moment because we do have a bundle offering, which I'll get to on the next slide, about two of them. So we've intentionally kept it simple. I like to think of it as there's $2 amounts you try and keep in your head. It's either going to be 1,285 or it's going to be 5,140 when it comes to the two different APIs. So with a rating register, it's one single flat fee for 12 months, a 12-month license. All our APIs are on a 12-month license. And with the rating calculator, it's split into two tiers. So you've either got the low volume tier or the high volume tier. And the way that it's differentiated is by the use of unique buildings. So with low volume, you can use the API for up to 10 unique buildings. And for the high volume, that's for greater than 10 unique buildings. And so we've intentionally designed it this way as well to help access for smaller users to the API. And that's where you can see the price difference. So for the low volume, 1,285, the high volume, 5,140. So with the pricing, disclaimer, we'll be reviewing the structure and fees within the first year of implementation. It'll also be subject to the fee increases aligned with all our other tools that happen every year. And as you'd know, because we NABERS operate on a cost recovery model, and that the API is a very different product to our other certifications, for example, we do want to make sure that it works for the market. So we'll review it in the first 12 months. In terms of what it covers, so we also wanted to keep it very, very simple. We didn't want to charge a fee or charge different fees if you wanted a different rating tool. So for example, if you wanted energy or water or indoor environment, do we charge you for one? Do we charge you for two? Do we charge you for three? Very simple. It's one fee. You get access to all those that are available. And if you wanted it for a different building type, we also didn't want to, charge you separately if you wanted one for offices or offices and shopping centers or offices, shopping centers, and warehouses. So again, very simple. It's just that one flat fee, and you get access to all the rating tools and building types we have available. So you got the question in your head, what rating tools and what building types are available? So simply, if you go to the pricing page, it's the best way to look at it. We got a table there that'll show you which ones are and are not available, but most of them are. And then most of them are currently included. For ones that currently aren't, we're either working on it, it might be on the horizon, or maybe we don't have plans. So let us know if there's a particular one that it isn't available for and you want us to actually create it for, and then, we can look at putting that into the work plan. Another thing which relates to the pricing and, how you get access to it is something on technical request limits, so a technical limitation, if you will. And this is on the amount of requests or calls that you can make. So we have set these because we want to make sure that we don't run into any performance issues. If one is using 90% of the usage and slows it down for everyone else, so they don't make the chance to. And so we've set these limits here. It's also in our technical documentation. So 1,000 calls per day, 200 calls per minute, or 100 calculations in a single request. I'm sure you'll have some questions around that as well. So feel free to reach out to us because it might involve a discussion, as we found, because there's lots of considerations that your dev team will have in how they need to build it. So I mentioned a bundle offer. So we are offering a bundle for the two APIs, and the why is because we want to maximize the value for you and encourage adoption across both APIs. What we found during the piloting phase is that sometimes people might have only asked for one specific API. So for example, they might have only asked for the rating register, but when we gave them access to the rating calculator, it actually opened up many ideas for how it could be useful to them. They didn't know they could do this, or they wanted to do this, but didn't know how to use it. So this is why we're offering a bundle offer very simply. And it works in two ways. The first way being, if you purchase the rating register license, you can also opt to sign up for the rating calculator, low volume tier only, at no additional cost. So what this looks like is you're paying $1,285 for both of those if you want to opt in for the bundle offer. The second way is if you get the rating calculator first, you can sign up to the rating register at no additional cost. So we have two tiers for the rating calculator, so the low volume or high volume. So whether you sign up to one or the other, it means you can opt in for the rating register at no fee. And so I'll say it in terms of the low volume one, that's $1,285. you get access to the both. Or if you've got the high volume tier, then you're paying 5,140 for both. You don't have to pay the extra 1,285 for the rating register. So I hope that makes sense. It makes sense to me. It might take a while to register it, but again, keep that in mind. You can always ask us if you want a bit of clarification around it, because there are some details that you probably want to make sure before you sign up to that, and make sure you are getting what you want if you did want both and wanted to activate the bundle offer. So quick heads up, I'm just going to breeze through this one so we can get to the Q&A because we're almost done. We have technical documents online. There are links to the page. And I did see a question about some of the details, especially with the demo that Carl was doing. So with the technical documentation, you will actually have links to the sample code. And I like to oversimplify things, but it's really, you can copy and paste the sample, put it into Postman or put it into any other form of code, and it will work that way. Depending on how you're going about it, there might be some troubleshooting. But yes, that's available. It's available in our technical documentation, and that's hosted online. And tech updates and ongoing support. So this one's important because we definitely will be doing quite a lot in the very near future. When it comes to changes, we'll make sure we notify users beforehand because there will be some associated impacts. If you're familiar with the rating register, you'll probably be aware of those, where you might then need to make some changes in the backend, such as changes to columns or field names, or changes to, or when we make changes to the tool, like the energy tool on the 1st of July. So we're working on a changelog and release notes to help with that. And when it comes to ideas, and I mentioned it before, please let us know, because you'll probably come up with something that we haven't thought of, or when lots of people ask for it, then it really gives us a prompt that we should create something for that. Some things that we've heard, for example, is, hey, we want to see something like a prediction tool API, or we want to see a commitment agreement register API. Let us know, because we mean this when we say we genuinely take this stuff on board, and especially for the API, that's something us, the project team, will be looking at. And it does go without being said, we're here to help. So any questions you have about the tool or the process, if you think it'll be helpful to do a demo or presentation for your team, let us know. If you're running into some error messages, we figured out a good way to manage these through the piloting processes, because a lot of the times you will probably get error messages. Let us know and we'll help you troubleshoot that. One thing that I'm very excited for as well is we've got this we've got a new brand spanking pretty API logo. So we created 2 logos for you to display wherever you use our API. So for example, let's say you got a dashboard or a service you're providing to a client. You can actually show this where you display those outputs, whether they're calculations or data that you've derived from the rating register. And a big reason why we've done this is we heard a lot that people wanted to set themselves apart if they're using something like this. So simply put, here you go, because we also want you to be able to set yourselves apart. You'll be able to show that what you're doing is powered by the NABERS API, and it gives you that extra credibility and transparency. Customers will have that extra confidence on what's happening behind the data calculations, and it's coming from the NABERS name. So I'm so conscious of time. I know I've only really left 2 minutes for Q&A. What I'll do is, if I could ask you, Carl and Ash, to put your cameras on, we'll touch through some Q&A. We'll try and finish this very close to 11:45. We'll wrap up. We'll take a look at the questions after and make sure we get back to you. But I also urge you, please reach out to us, because there's so much that we can do, especially when it comes out to putting out some more information, so you don't have to reach out to us for the questions. I haven't been paying attention to the Q&A, so I might actually ask you first, Carl and Ash, if there's any particular ones that I didn't touch on or that we should really urgently answer for everyone.
There's a few questions there about testing environment, and the answer to that is that the program that I use, the console, and others such as Postman are available online, generally free. So they're, as Ron said, pretty easy to get up to speed on to make a call. So that's something that you can find online.
Thank you. And I actually see, Haibo, your hand up. Did you want to say something or switch yourself on to mention something or post it in the Q&A in case we haven't said anything?
Oh, no, sorry. That was purely an accidental click.
Okay, no worries. Sorry for
great,
calling
great
you out there.
presentation.
Thanks. I saw some tech ones that I maybe didn't answer. Ash, did you want to speak to any of those?
So there's a question about the 2 decimal. So yes, we are providing the 2 decimal in the results for the calculators. There's also a question. I think you, Carl, you answered the one about the offices and waste ratings, right?
Ron, there was a question about whether the online calculators are still going to be available. So I think it would be good to clarify that they will still be there as well. So there's still that option if people would like to use it.
Yes, absolutely. We're not going to force everyone to, by taking that away and saying you got to use the API to get access to this. So you'll still have access to those online calculators and the rating register and free way to access that information. Yes. And we're actually at 11:45, so I mean, it's amazing. Thank you all so much for sending through these questions. We'll make sure I see a lot of answers that come through from the team, so thank you all for doing that. We will wrap this up now, and I will take us through one more slide, which is really a heads up. So one heads up, we've got our NABERS energy update consultation paper that's out that closes next week on Friday. If you haven't taken a look at it and you're interested in it, go ahead and read that. And if you were intending to put some comments through, please go ahead and do that by Friday, the 12th of December. And really just a call out as well. So you've got myself, Carl, and Ash as the API team. Shoot those questions to us. We'll be happy to help you. Also happy to jump on a call and feedback, anything you find interesting. We are all ears. And that brings us to the end of the session. That went by really quickly. I hope you all got a lot of good information. Again, you know, I understand it's high level. You probably want a chance to digest the information and read into it more. Go ahead and do that and ask us the questions. We are happy to help. Thank you all so much. Very excited for the launch of the API. Go ahead and take a look at those terms and conditions, shoot it through so you can get access straight away. And we will talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.